There's something about the world between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., something different, something rare. It's the only time when everything is still. The world isn't demanding your attention. Your phone isn't buzzing, emails aren't flooding in, and no one expects anything from you. During the day, we are constantly surrounded by noise, both external and internal. The sound of conversations, notifications, responsibilities pulling us in different directions. Even in moments of supposed rest, our minds are occupied, jumping from one thought to the next. But at this hour, none of that exists. The world hasn't started moving yet. The distractions are gone. And in that silence, something profound happens. It's why some of the greatest thinkers, leaders, and creators in history have found clarity in the earliest hours of the morning. It's why monks and spiritual leaders wake before dawn to pray and meditate. There's an openness in this time that doesn't exist in any other part of the day. The stillness forces you to be present. There's nowhere to run, nothing to check, no one to respond to. It's just you, alone with your thoughts. And that can be uncomfortable. We're not used to silence. We've conditioned ourselves to seek noise, to stay busy, to fill every empty space with something. Music, television, scrolling, talking. But in these early hours, none of that is available. And that's the point. When everything else fades away, what's left? What thoughts rise to the surface? What emotions reveal themselves? The early hours have a way of bringing out what we've suppressed throughout the day. Our deepest desires, our biggest fears, the questions we've been avoiding. And the question is, are you paying attention? There's a reason you wake up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. It's not just random. It's not just your body adjusting or a restless night. It's something deeper. Something intentional. Think about it. Throughout the day, we are consumed by obligations, work, family, deadlines, expectations. We move from one task to the next, often on autopilot. We're so busy doing that we rarely stop to ask ourselves why. Why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we here? What's the bigger picture? But in the early hours of the morning, when the world is still and quiet, something inside you stirs. A nudge, a whisper, a feeling that there is something more. You might wake up with a racing heart, a lingering thought, or an unshakable sense that you should be paying attention to something. This is not an accident, because in these moments, there's no noise to drown it out, no distractions to push it aside. What's left is something raw and unfiltered, the truth that has been trying to reach you all along. A call to purpose doesn't always come in a grand, cinematic way. It doesn't always arrive with trumpets and flashing lights. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it comes in the form of waking up in the middle of the night, unable to go back to sleep, with nothing but your thoughts and the stillness around you. And yet we often ignore it. We dismiss it as insomnia, stress, or an inconvenient disruption to our sleep. But what if it's something else? What if it's an invitation to reflect on what truly matters? What if waking up at this hour is not a disturbance, but a message? One that's been trying to get through to you, but couldn't because you were too busy to listen. A call to purpose isn't about answering a single question or making one big decision. It's about alignment. It's about recognizing that you are here for something greater than routine, greater than mere survival. It's about peeling back the layers of distraction and seeing what lies beneath. And when that call comes, when you find yourself awake, heart pounding, mind racing, or simply staring at the ceiling, unable to drift back to sleep, what will you do with it? You wake up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., and for a moment, you're not sure why. Your body is still tired, your room is dark, and yet, something inside you stirs. You glance at the clock, hoping it's just a coincidence, but deep down, you know it's not. This is the hour when the mind speaks the loudest. Not in the chaos of the day when everything competes for your attention, but in the quiet when there's nowhere left to hide. And in this quiet, something lingers. Unfinished business. Unfinished business is not just about tasks left incomplete or obligations forgotten. It's about the conversations you never had, the decisions you've been avoiding, the dreams you've been putting off. It's about the weight you carry, the emotions, the regrets, the unanswered questions that refuse to be silenced. Think about it. During the day, it's easy to push things aside. You tell yourself, I'll think about it later. But later never comes, because there's always something else demanding your attention. You stay busy, distracted, occupied, because facing the truth is uncomfortable. But at 3 a.m., there's nothing left to distract you. The world is asleep, but your mind is wide awake, forcing you to confront what you've been running from. It's in these moments that the past resurfaces, that the choices you've avoided demand to be acknowledged. Maybe it's an opportunity you ignored, a path you were meant to take but never did, a relationship that needs healing. Or maybe it's something deeper, something unresolved within yourself that you've been too afraid to face. The mind has a way of reminding us of what matters, whether we like it or not. It doesn't care about our schedules. It doesn't wait for a convenient time. It brings up unfinished business when we are least prepared for it, because that's when we are most receptive to hearing it. And yet our instinct is to dismiss it. We roll over, try to force ourselves back to sleep, or reach for distractions to numb the thoughts away. But the truth is, ignoring it doesn't make it go away. It only delays what is inevitable. Because the things left unresolved don't just disappear. They linger. They surface again and again. And sometimes they wake you up in the middle of the night demanding to be acknowledged. So when that moment comes, when your mind pulls you from sleep and presents you with unfinished business, what will you do? Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., something happens. The world slows down. The distractions that consume your days disappear. The noise fades into silence, and you're left with something rare, a moment of connection. We live in a world that constantly demands our attention. Every minute is filled with emails, texts, responsibilities, and expectations. From the moment we wake up, we are plugged into a system that thrives on urgency. We move from one thing to the next without stopping to ask why. And in the process, we become disconnected in the world around us, but from ourselves. But in the early hours of the morning, something shifts. There are no notifications to check, no schedules to follow. No one is asking anything of you. It's just you, awake in the stillness, feeling something you can't quite explain. Maybe you wake up with a thought, a feeling, a question that won't let you go. Maybe it's clarity about something you've been struggling with. Maybe it's an idea, a realization, or a memory that comes rushing back. Maybe, for the first time in a long time, you feel something greater than yourself. An energy, a presence, a whisper telling you to pay attention. This is not an accident. We are so used to chasing meaning in the external world that we forget the most profound connections happen internally, in moments of stillness, in the spaces between the noise. In the quiet hours when our minds are open and our hearts are willing to listen. Think about the times when you've had your greatest insights. They don't come when you're rushing through your day, trying to check things off a to-do list. They come in moments of pause, in moments when you step away from the chaos and allow yourself to just be. That's what this moment is, a reset, a chance to tune in to what you've been missing. Maybe it's a connection to your own thoughts, to emotions you've been ignoring. Maybe it's a connection to a higher purpose, a deeper truth, something bigger than you. Maybe it's the realization that you are not alone, that guidance is always there. You just haven't been still enough to receive it. At 3 a.m., there's no audience, no expectations, no need to prove anything. There is only you and whatever is calling for your attention, whatever truth is rising to the surface, whatever moment of connection is waiting for you to notice. And in that space, something powerful happens. Growth is uncomfortable. It always has been, it always will be. We like to believe that growth is this exciting, uplifting journey, a straight path from where we are to where we want to be. But the truth is, growth is messy. It's painful. It disrupts everything we thought we knew. It forces us into spaces we're not ready for, challenges we didn't ask for, and emotions we'd rather not feel. And that's why so many people avoid it. But here's the thing. Growth doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't knock politely and ask if you're ready. It shows up unannounced, sometimes in the middle of your busiest season, sometimes in the quiet hours of the night when you wake up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. feeling unsettled, restless, and unsure of what's wrong. That feeling, that discomfort, that's not random. That's growth. Because growth happens when something inside you shifts, when the way you've been living, thinking, or acting no longer fits where you're supposed to go next. It's when the habits, relationships, or beliefs you've held on to start feeling restrictive, like a pair of shoes that no longer fit. You might not know exactly what needs to change yet, but you feel it. You feel the tension between who you are and who you're becoming. And tension is uncomfortable. Most people, when faced with this discomfort, try to escape it. They distract themselves with work, entertainment, social media, anything to avoid sitting with the unease of transformation. Because sitting with it means confronting the truth. It means asking hard questions. It means realizing that the life you've built may no longer align with the person you're meant to be. And that realization is terrifying. Because if you acknowledge it, you can't unsee it. If you listen to that voice inside you, the one telling you that you're meant for more, that something needs to change, then you have a choice to make. And choices come with consequences. They come with risk. They come with the possibility of failure, of disappointment, of stepping into the unknown without a guarantee of success. And that's why people resist growth. Not because they don't want to change, but because change requires letting go of what's comfortable, letting go of certainty, letting go of the version of themselves that feels safe, even if it's no longer serving them. But here's the paradox. Growth and comfort cannot coexist. Every person who has ever done something meaningful has had to endure the discomfort of growth. Every leader, every visionary, every person who has broken through limitations has had a moment where they felt lost, scared, or stuck in between the life they had and the life they were meant for. And many of them, they felt it in the early hours of the morning, when the rest of the world was asleep, when there was no noise to drown out the truth, when the feeling of unease was impossible to ignore. That moment when you wake up at 3 a.m. and your mind is racing, that moment when you feel something stirring inside you, something that won't let you rest, that's not an inconvenience, that's your calling. That's growth knocking on your door, asking if you're ready. Fear and faith cannot occupy the same space. One will always overpower the other. The question is, which one are you feeding? Fear is the mind's natural response to the unknown. It thrives in uncertainty, in the gaps between what we know and what we don't. Fear tells us to stay put, to stick with what's comfortable, to avoid risks. It convinces us that worst-case scenarios are inevitable, that failure is guaranteed, that stepping into something new will only lead to regret. Faith, on the other hand, operates in the same space as fear, but it tells a different story. Faith is the belief that even in uncertainty, something greater is at work. That even when we can't see the outcome, we are being guided. That even when we don't feel ready, we are still capable. Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., when you wake up unexpectedly, these two forces collide. You know the feeling. You're pulled from sleep, your mind suddenly awake, thoughts racing. It's in these moments that fear tries to creep in. You start thinking about the things you haven't figured out yet, the problems waiting for you, the dreams you're too afraid to chase. Your mind starts running through worst-case scenarios, convincing you that you are not enough, that you'll never figure it out, that you're wasting time even thinking about something bigger for your life. Fear is loud at 3 a.m. because this is the hour when distractions are gone. The world is quiet. There's nothing left to drown out the voice inside you. And in that silence, fear sees an opportunity to take control. But here's what we forget. Faith is just as present. Faith is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward despite it. It's the willingness to believe in something you cannot yet see. It's the understanding that uncertainty does not mean danger. It means possibility. Fear asks, what if I fail? Faith asks, what if this is exactly what I'm meant to do? Fear says, stay where it's safe. Faith says, growth is never safe, but it's always worth it. Fear wants control. It wants guarantees. It wants to know every step before taking the first one. But faith doesn't work that way. Faith requires trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in the process. Trust that the things waking you up at 3 a.m. are not random. They are signs. They are nudges. They are reminders that you were meant for more. And yet, most people choose fear. Not because they want to, but because it feels easier. It feels rational. Fear gives you reasons. It gives you data. It makes you believe that if you don't have all the answers right now, then it's safer to do nothing. But what's the cost of that? What's the cost of ignoring the pull inside you? What's the cost of letting fear dictate your choices? What's the cost of waking up at 3 a.m., feeling like something is calling you to do more, be more, and rolling over, choosing to silence it? Fear will keep you in the same place forever if you let it. But faith will push you forward. Faith will remind you that even though you don't have all the answers, you are capable of figuring them out. That even though the path is unclear, you are still meant to walk it. So when you wake up in the stillness of the early morning, with your heart racing and your mind questioning everything, what will you choose? Fear or faith? We spend most of our lives fighting for control, fighting for certainty, fighting to make things go exactly the way we want them to. We set plans, create expectations, and convince ourselves that if we just try hard enough, if we just hold on tight enough, everything will fall into place exactly as we imagined. But then life happens. Things don't go according to plan. Unexpected challenges arise. The path we were so sure about suddenly feels unclear. And no matter how much we resist, no matter how hard we try to force things back into place, we realize we are not in control. And that's terrifying, because we've been taught that control is the key to success, that if we work harder, push harder, hold on tighter, we can bend life to our will. But the truth is, the more we cling to control, the more we suffer. The more we resist, the more exhausted we become. The more we demand answers, the more lost we feel. And that's where surrender comes in. Surrender is not about giving up. It's not about being passive. It's not about walking away from your dreams or accepting a life that feels small. Surrender is about trust. It's about recognizing that no matter how much you plan, no matter how much you analyze every possible outcome, there are forces at work greater than you. It's about understanding that some things are meant to unfold in their own time, in their own way, and that your job is not to control every detail. It's to let go and allow the process to unfold. Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., when you wake up suddenly, mind racing, heart pounding, feeling like something is stirring inside you, that's not just restlessness, that's resistance. That's the battle between control and surrender playing out inside you. Maybe you're holding on to a version of life that no longer fits. Maybe you're gripping so tightly onto an idea of success, of love, of purpose, that you're not allowing something even better to come in. Maybe you're trying so hard to force something into place that you haven't stopped to ask if it's even meant for you. Surrender is the moment you release that grip. It's the moment you stop resisting what life is trying to teach you. It's the moment you say, I don't have all the answers, but I trust that I am being guided. It's the moment you realize that control is an illusion and that the real power comes in letting go. But letting go is hard because it means stepping into the unknown. It means accepting that you might not have everything figured out. It means trusting something bigger than yourself, whether that's God, the universe, your own intuition, without needing immediate proof. And that's what makes surrender so powerful. It takes courage. It takes strength. It takes the willingness to stop forcing, stop fighting, and start flowing with what is being placed in front of you. It takes understanding that not everything is meant to be controlled. Some things are meant to be received. And sometimes, when you wake up in the stillness of the early morning, unable to sleep, unable to quiet your thoughts, it's not because something is wrong. It's because something is shifting, because something inside you is being called to let go. And in that moment, you have a choice. Hold on tighter or surrender to what's waiting for you. You wake up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., not because you want to, not because you plan to, but because something, some force, has stirred you from sleep. Your body feels heavy. Your mind is alert. And no matter how much you try to roll over and force yourself back into unconsciousness, you remain awake. Most people see this as an interruption, a disruption to rest, an inconvenience. But what if it's not? What if it's something else entirely? What if waking up in these still, silent hours is not a disturbance, but an invitation? An invitation to pause, an invitation to reflect, an invitation to listen to what your soul has been trying to tell you all along. The world spends its waking hours pulling you in 100 different directions. The demands of work, the expectations of others, the endless noise of information flooding your mind. There is never a moment when you are truly alone with your thoughts. You are constantly reacting, constantly engaged, constantly moving from one thing to the next. And yet, in the earliest hours of the morning, all of that disappears. The world is quiet. The distractions are gone. There is nothing left but you and whatever is calling to you. But instead of seeing this as a sacred moment, most people resist it. They get frustrated, tossing and turning, checking the clock, counting down the hours until morning. They try to drown out the thoughts that begin to rise, ignoring the questions, the emotions, the stirrings within. Why? Because listening is uncomfortable. Because in the silence, we are forced to confront what we have been avoiding, the things we have buried beneath busyness, the dreams we have postponed, the emotions we have numbed, the truth we have silenced. This is not an interruption. This is a chance to realign. Think about it. How often do you take time to sit with yourself, to be still, to ask the deeper questions? How often do you stop long enough to hear the voice inside you, the one that knows what you truly want, the one that is guiding you towards something greater? Most people don't. Not because they don't care, but because life moves too fast. Because it's easier to keep going, to stay distracted, to fill every moment with something external rather than face what's happening internally. But at 3 a.m., there is nowhere to hide. You are awake for a reason. Something is trying to reach you. Maybe it's a thought you've pushed away. Maybe it's a realization that you've been avoiding. Maybe it's clarity about a decision, a reminder of something you once believed in, a calling to step into something greater. This is not just random wakefulness. This is an opportunity to surrender, an opportunity to acknowledge what you've been feeling deep down but haven't had the time or the courage to admit. But most importantly, this is an invitation to step into the life you are meant for, to ask the questions that matter, to sit in the discomfort of uncertainty and trust that the answers will come. What you do with this invitation is up to you. But make no mistake, this moment was never an interruption. It was always meant for you. When you wake up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., it is not random. It is not an inconvenience. It is a calling, a moment of clarity, of connection, of growth. It is an invitation to pause, to listen, to reflect on the things you've been too busy to notice during the day. It is in this sacred window, when the world is quiet and your soul is most open, that you are given a chance to realign, to face the questions you've been avoiding, to let go of the fear that has kept you stuck, to surrender to something greater than yourself. Fear will tell you to ignore it, to push it away, to go back to sleep and forget it ever happened. But faith invites you to lean in, to trust that these moments of wakefulness are not interruptions but divine nudges. They are reminders that you are being guided, that something within you is shifting, that you are being prepared for something more. So the next time you wake up in the stillness of the early morning, don't resist it, don't dismiss it. Instead, sit with it. Ask yourself what is being revealed, what is being asked of you, what you need to hear. Because in that space, between waking and dreaming, between fear and faith, there is wisdom waiting for you.